Hello, welcome to the Million Gold Nuggets podcast, where four dynamic women unite to share transformative insights on mindset, manifestation, spirituality, and the invaluable gems of wisdom that can elevate your life. We are parents, entrepreneurs, and friends from diverse corners of North America, passionate about sharing the lessons we've learned and implemented in our own journeys. Each week, join Nicole, Janine, Leslie, and myself as we dive into heartfelt conversations that inspire and uplift, blending personal development strategies with practical wisdom. Whether you're aiming for success, seeking personal growth, or simply looking to fine tune your mindset and energy, we've got the golden nuggets you need to turn your dreams into reality. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and prepare to soak up the insights that can spark your transformation. Together, let's forge a path to collective growth and expansion, because the journey to fulfillment is all about collecting those precious gold nuggets. Welcome to the show. I'm Amber, your host for today. In today's episode, we are going to talk about emotions, what they are, and how we can harness them to work for us. Hi, everyone. So nice to see you today.
Hey,
Hello.
So I guess the first question would be, what are emotions and how do they affect us? So your typical Webster's Dictionary definition would be that emotions are complex, physiological, and psychological responses to stimuli or experiences that are significant to us. So they act as a bridge between our inner world and the external environment, helping us interpret and respond to what is happening around and within us. So that's kind of your textbook definition. Since we know that emotions lead to thoughts and eventually belief systems, how can we use emotions to work for us?
that's such a great question. I think, one of the things that emotions always tell me is what is going on within me right now, right? Like it is such an indicator of where I'm putting my attention, my focus, my energy, right? Because emotion is energy in motion. So it's really highlighting what's going on, and if there's an emotion that I'm feeling that's not feeling so great, it's a great opportunity for me to be like, whoa, what's going on here? So maybe you guys can add to that.
Yeah, I would totally agree in terms of like just assessing myself and how I'm feeling in the day. And I I know that depending on my emotion, I make decisions, good or bad, depending on how I'm feeling. My connections with other people, depending on my emotions that day, can be different. So they can really play like a huge part in terms of what's going on my in my everyday life at the very minute, at that very moment. And so I am always trying to really hone into how I'm feeling about a situation, and really trying to think about before I react. I like to think so that I can act towards something, because my emotions can get the better of me, and like anybody else, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I do, how I look at emotions in regards to my life.
For me, and I ditto to everything that Leslie just said and Nicole. Um, but for me too, emotions, if I'm sad or if I'm happy, it allows me to know where I am with my spiritual connection, because if I'm sad or mad or whatever, then I know that there's a disconnect. And so I try to, just bring myself back to center and change that attitude, to be one of joy and peace and love, because that's where that's what the soul loves. And so I can just use that as a gauge
Well, it really
to
is
to
like
know
a
where I am.
choice. Like it's
Yeah.
really a choice, isn't it, Janine, that we have that choice to choose how we're going to feel in a moment.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
because
if we,
sometimes we'll let those emotions take over, but
yes,
it is our choice to change that.
Mm.
and be aware of it. And that's something
Hmm.
that I think comes with practice, is being aware of how you're feeling, how you're responding to things. And so like for a while there, I took like a little journal and I would write down how I was feeling and why I was feeling a certain way, to really kind of start to understand myself and how I react to certain incidences in my life. I don't like to say react anymore. I like to say act towards, because I know that I choose that,
Mm.
right? But I also know that like when I choose to act in whatever way it would be, it really affects my whole being. So if I'm upset, my stomach is twirling, my head might be throbbing. But when I'm happy and joyful, I have like a light feeling. It's like I want to dance. It's like I'm like floating around and happy. So I know that I try to choose those happier emotions all the time because I prefer to feel that way. How many of you really love to feel yucky? Not
Yeah,
many of
Mm.
us,
and
right?
it is a matter of awareness and practice, because our default is just to let our emotions control us instead of
Mhm.
we being in control of them.
That's such a good point. Control,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But I think too,
Yep.
like we have to understand that emotions are part of the human experience. They're meant to
Mhm.
show us, to teach us, you know,
Mhm.
Mhm.
like how we're thinking about certain things, right? And then it
Mhm.
allows us the opportunity to say, is what I'm thinking true?
Mhm.
Because often we're creating a story about
Yep.
certain things that is creating this emotion. So it really allows us to do some introspection and really figure out, okay, you know, I understand you, human. It's, you know, you're okay. You know, thank you for showing me this emotion, right? And then you're able to then acknowledge it, but also process it and then change it, right? So
Mhm.
that, you
Yeah.
know, you can move yourself into you know, a more positive emotion. Because the truth of the matter is that if you're feeling a negative emotion and you're just like, everything's fine, right? Like plaster the smile
Mhm.
on your face, you know, that's just covering it up. It's not
Mhm.
actually processing or moving the
Mhm.
energy. So, you know, I think that's something that you can really, you know, take to heart and start to understand how you can recognize it, but also learn to acknowledge and accept, you know, without judgment, because these
Mhm.
emotions are part of the human experience. We're supposed to experience them all. So there should be no judgment, right? It
Mhm.
should only be a learning experience. Like, oh, okay, this is how I'm feeling about this. How interesting, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily whether it's right or wrong, you
No,
know,
Just
it's
is.
just feedback,
just a
really.
feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just is. It's so funny because and this may be a new concept for people that are listening, that you can choose. So prior to coming into my spiritual journey, I remember like the stickers and like the memes that would say like choose happy, like wake up and choose happiness. And I would think, what are you talking about? I wake up, circumstances, my kids, my whatever, that is what like prompts the happiness, right? So I'd be like, what do you mean choose happiness? Like if my kids are irritating me, I'm going to be upset. Like I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And now it's like I finally understand what they meant, right? So we're choosing because ultimately you're right. In those moments, let's say I'm thinking about something sad and I recognize it for what it is, then in that moment I have, okay, do I want to keep going down that path, or do I want to do something? Because you're right, like the coming in part we can't stop, but once we're aware of it,
Mhm.
right? If a train's coming at you, like we can't stop the train coming from coming from us, but I can turn to like get out of the way or move or do something. right? So in that moment, what am I going to do? Am I going to listen to music? Am I going to read? Am I going to literally move? I don't know, like whatever, right? So I love that so much. And we kind of delved into a little bit, but my next question was going to be, and I think you talked about it earlier, Nicole, emotion. So, or emotion. So from a spiritual perspective, emotions could be seen as energy in motion, hence emotion, flowing through us to guide, teach, and connect us, with our deeper selves and with the universe, God, source, whatever it may be for you. So how can we see the messages within I call them not so comfy emotions. So, right, when we're elated and we're, all these amazing things, awesome. But when we're in that moment of like sadness, anger, what have you, what are some ways that we can see the messages within those emotions?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that I have to be aware. I have to kind of stop myself
Yeah.
and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Because so I know, like, so often I would just get carried away. I can't stop, right? And it wasn't until I really practiced and started thinking about my thoughts, right? And the feelings that came with the thoughts, uh, and then I was able to kind of stop and say, okay, what's going on here? Am I having just a sad moment, or am I a sad person? Am I, but really I'm a happy person. I'm just having a sad moment.
Yeah,
Right. So I think awareness is the first place that I would start.
absolutely.
I think that's so powerful that you said that, right? Like, just because you're having a sad moment doesn't mean that you're a sad person, right? I love that. You're just a happy person having a sad moment or a sad week or month, or do you know what I mean? Like, there are things that will come about that, you might not be happy 100% of the time, but it doesn't mean that you're a sad person. It could be sad circumstances, or you know what I mean? But a lot of it has to do with the stories that we're telling ourselves. And I think each one of us have all mentioned how much the awareness is so important, right? When those emotions come in, it's asking yourself those questions, right? Acknowledge them, but also, like, what are you telling yourself? It's usually around the stories that we're creating and building in our minds. And then it can either reinforce that emotion, right? And one thing that I've learned is that suffering is a choice, right? Like, you can choose to suffer and regurgitate and go over things again and again and again in your mind and keep feeling those feelings and everything else that goes along with it. That's a choice.
Yeah.
But you can also choose to see it a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when Leslie had said, notice why it's coming up, and I think it's important to mention that, and I'm sure this is what she meant, but like, notice it, not judge it. So oftentimes, well, why am I sad? Well, why are you sad? Right. So it's more of like, I noticed, right? So that's the observers part of it. So just like a bird flying around, we're not like, well, where are they going? What are they doing? How many family members do they have? Right. We literally just notice it in the sky. Oh, wow, pretty bird, right? As it flies. And so I think if we take the same thing, like, notice the emotions for sure, like, become aware of it, but and we ask questions, right? Like, why am I sad? But omitting it from delving into, well, you're sad again, or, your mom was sad, or, well, you've been sad your whole life, or whatever it may be, right? Just noticing, I'm sad. Okay, why? All right, well, today, I don't know, some photos off my phone got deleted or whatever, right? Okay, cool. And then from there, then we're going to shift, because now we become aware of it. That created the sadness. Now I'm choosing, okay, now what can I do? Can I do anything about this situation? And then how can I shift it from that? I think is so important. Because you're right, we weren't, we're here as spirits having a human experience, but I truly believe that we were brought here to feel happiness, to feel love, to feel all these things, right? And part of it comes sadness and anger and, these uncomfy feelings, but I don't think that's meant to be our dominant one. So it's really just learning to become aware and shifting. Another question I had, what are some ways that we can strengthen our emotions? So we talked about, noticing them. But what are some ways that we can, maybe go into those happy moments? And obviously outside of, I'm at a party, you know what I mean, dancing around, like just sitting at home, what are some ways that we could strengthen those without the outside environment?
Well, I know with me, practicing gratitude really helps to elevate my emotions to the emotions I want to be in, which is love and joy and peace. So gratitude, whether I'm journaling it, whether I'm saying it out loud, having a little prayer, saying thank you, just to say thank you. And also what's really big for me is exercise. So exercise makes me feel really good. So it elevates my emotions. And so if I'm feeling like a little ways for no reason and not judging myself on it, I just feel that way, I'll definitely go and have some sort of exercise, whether it be out for a walk in nature or go to the gym. So
Yeah, that really gets and that's a good part too to mention, is that it does get your physical energy moving. Because at home we meditate, we sing, we dance, whatever, but like the physical movement of the energy is also very helpful as well, because we are here in a human body. So that's something that can help a lot as well.
yeah.
I definitely second that. I second that. And gratitude is huge, right? That was the first thing that came to mind, Leslie. And it's also figuring out why am I so grateful for that particular thing, right? Like that's what really gets you into the feels of it, right? Because I think sometimes, we look at some of these things and we're like, check, right, off my to-do list, but it's not like, oh, I'm thankful for my house, my kids, and my car, my my health. And like people list these things off very, very easily. But why are you thankful for your children? Right?
Yeah.
Why are you thankful for your partner? Why are you thankful for your house? Like, what does it do for you? How do you feel when you're around those things? Right? Like, what do you get to experience? And, that really, like, that always helps me. Right. And like you said, Amber, pretty much like our baseline is love. Right. So it's always, how do we return to love? And gratitude is always my number one go-to. Right. But I do love exercise as well, because that definitely shifts the stagnant energy. And always, like if I go for a walk or a swim or, something like that, always. And that's always when, not only do I feel better, but the creativity comes to me.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like there's so many benefits in so many ways doing those things.
One of the things, or a couple of the things that I think strengthening our emotions is by embracing vulnerability and just allowing yourself to feel deeply and express the emotions authentically, and go through those steps that your mind, your body is taking you through. And of course, engage in self-care and setting boundaries. Sometimes you have to say no. But when you set boundaries, that also, I think, can help strengthen your emotions.
100%. That's such a good point, Janine. I love that. Like, because, the thing is, sometimes we're saying yes to things that we want to say no to. Right.
Yeah. And you're surrounding
we're
yourself with people
all
that
the
are supportive.
feeling.
You just surround yourself with people that are supportive rather than, being the yes person to any and everything.
I
I think
want to
it's really,
jump on.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to just jump on the self-care aspect of just talking nice to yourself, doing nice things for yourself, loving yourself. That all puts you into such a great state of mind in your emotions, right? So the more I love myself, the more I'm happy, the more I feel joy and bliss and peace, and a knowing within my life. So that was a good point, Janine. Thanks for bringing up self-care.
Yeah, I love that.
I love it. And then with the boundaries too, I was just going to say that that actually comes from a place of power, and not like a domineering power, but more of like you're taking your power back. Because like you said, Janine, there's so many times where we say yes when we really want to say no. But I found that in those moments, hey, I'm not going to make this meeting. Sorry, can't, XYZ. It's like you're taking your power back, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where those emotions come from. And then I mean, this whole talk, it's all been, back to emotions, Nicole, like what you were talking about too. The exercising, right? Emotions. How do we feel, right? How are we feeling before? How are we feeling after? Inspiration. I mean, that's another emotion. It all just comes back to that. And it just goes to show you like how powerful that is once we become aware of it, right? Once we move out of the way of the oncoming train or whatever it may be. This has been really great. Janine, do you have a blurb for us tonight? Don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have one, be glad to hear it.
Okay, let me see here. Um, this is I'm gonna read this. I'm sorry. Emotions are the language of the soul, guiding us to deeper truths and higher awarenesses. They serve as sacred messages urging us to pause, reflect, and realign with our inner being. Whether joy, sorrow, or anger, each emotion holds divine wisdom, inviting us to embrace, heal, and grow. By honoring our emotions, we create space for spiritual clarity, fostering a connection to our higher self and the infinite love that surrounds us.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that so much, Janine.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to the Million Gold Nuggets podcast. If you got value out of this episode or think someone could benefit from it, please hit the share button and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until we meet again, remember, the journey to fulfillment is all about collecting those precious gold nuggets.